I'm Elsa, and this is my story. On January 27, 2011, I was at school and I was heading towards my engineering class, and somehow that day I had the feeling like everything was going to go bad, and I felt like the world was going to end, and I ended up going to that class, and next thing you know, I was crying and crying so much that nobody could say anything that could help me. And so that day they ended up calling my dad to come pick me up from school. Turned out that they told my dad that he had to take me to the hospital because I was suicidal at the moment and I wanted to cut myself. So on that day I ended up being admitted into the hospital, and while I was in there I felt so lonely, and I just kept on thinking, why me? Why, if God really cared about me, why didn't he ever do anything about my situation? And so in the hospital they always talked about forgiving the person or forgiving anybody who did anything bad to you, and I always thought to myself, how can you forgive a person that pretty much ruined your whole life? And so finally on February 7th I was released from the hospital and I went to a shelter, and from that shelter I ended up going to a group home. In that group home, they always promoted coming to church, and at that time I didn't really have a faith. I believe that there is a God, but he just didn't really care about me. I wasn't just that important enough. I ended up going to church that day when I got there. And I was just sitting there and I was just like, what am I doing here? There's nothing for me to be doing here at this moment. So I just sat there and listened and didn't really take in anything of what anybody was saying. I was just like, there's no point in listening if I'm not going to believe anything. What really was a turning point was that when I was coming to the church, there was this one event that they were having where we were going to go to a concert and listen to all these bands and everything. And so I ended up going because, well, it was music related and I really love music. So I ended up going, and everybody was really excited and psyched up about it. And as I was sitting in there, the very last band that came up, it was Skillet was playing, and they told this story about a girl that was a cutter and that she came up to them, and I don't really remember what they said about her, but they showed a picture of a razor necklace that she had on, and so that pretty much was like another breaking point right there, because I ended up crying and I felt like something was calling me to change the way I thought, to just pretty much change everything about me, change my life. And so I remember the main member of Skillet, he was like, if you've never accepted God into your life or anything like that, he said, he told us to stand up. And so I decided that at that moment I was going to accept God into my life. So I ended up standing up, and it felt, well, I don't know, but it felt different. Like, I felt different at that moment. Like, maybe things were going to get better. Maybe there is a God who cares about me. So later on, I started getting more involved in my church, and it actually helped deepen my faith a whole lot more. So now I really do believe there is a God, because He has given me all this strength and all this experience to help me later on in the future and to help me get through anything that I go through at this moment. Because of my faith in God, I've actually learned to forgive, the one thing that I never thought I could do. So I ended up forgiving my dad and everything he ever did to me. I'm Elsa, and that's my story.